Good day, fellow flippers. My name is Brad of Chai Sox Cardboard, and I was not planning to do this episode today, but I've had one of the best flippin' weekends of the last flippin' year. And so I wanted to pop on and kind of share my experience for the weekend. I sold 7 cards this weekend. Before I package them all up, I've got them ready to package up here. Some of the labels are printed. The envelope's addressed. Everything's about ready to go, but the cards are not packaged yet because I wanted to pop on and show them off before I sent them on their way. And just kind of talk about some of the principles that I've been advancing on this channel. And one of those is that the purchase is the most important piece. Because I think all 7 of these cards that I've sold this weekend were sold at fair prices. And they're vintage cards. Nothing has changed about these cards. And they were all purchased and sold within 3 months. So they were purchased at good prices and sold at fair prices, good, average prices. In other words, I'm not gouging anybody for these cards. I'm also not sitting on them for a long time waiting for somebody to overpay. I'm buying them at good prices so that I'm able to move them quickly at even better prices, but still very fair prices. So let me just show them off a little bit here. First 2 are just some high grade 1964 commons. First we've got Billy Odell, who unfortunately was suffering from like a gnarly cold sore or something right in the middle of his upper lip when this photograph was taken, and sold to the same buyer another similar card, Bob Buell, both of them in PSA 8. These were purchased on eBay at auction at very good prices, and they were sold on My Slabs. I've sold now 8 cards on My Slabs, and they've been going. I've been enjoying the platform for the most part. I had a little trouble with one of my most recent sales. With some refunds that shouldn't have been issued to the buyer, but My Slabs made it right. In fact, they made it a little bit more than right. They compensated me for the time and energy that I had to put in order to make myself whole, and so no hard feelings. Appreciate what My Slabs did for me there. And in the end, I made a profit of just about $7 on the 2 cards. So certainly not a big profit, but happy to have owned them briefly. I'm always a sucker for the high grade commons in the vintage era. The next 2 cards I sold were also to the same buyer. These were some low grade vintage Hall of Famers. So the first one is Duke Snider, 1957 card. Low grade, I would say good condition, might grade a PSA 2, maybe a 1.5. And then the other is Phil Rizzuto, similar grade, 1954. And those cards were both bought. Those were bought on Net54, and they were sold on Net54. So I always feel a little weird about that. These cards were offered up for purchase or offered up for sale by a gentleman back in November, and I picked up 12 cards from him, 12 kind of similar cards, low grade 1950s raw Hall of Famers. I picked up 12 cards from him, and mostly I sold them on eBay, but these last 2 I sold on Net54, which I always feel a little bit strange about posting the same cards within a relatively short period of time, but I think 3 months is an okay window to wait. Like maybe 3 weeks would be a little bit less palatable. But these were the last 2 of those 12 cards that I bought just 3 months ago. I bought them for $210 total, and sold them all in 3 months for $279.08. So a total profit of $69.08 or 33%. And again, most of those were on eBay. So I've been kind of sour on selling or on buying and flipping raw cards, but I think maybe there's a window of opportunity in low grade Hall of Famers, because I've never bought a kind of a lot of low grade Hall of Famers like this one, and certainly I had good success buying them off of eBay through a private sale and then selling them on eBay. So here are those cards: the Duke Snyder and the Phil Rizzuto, sold at profits of, I mean, these were my last two available, so I was making them available at a pretty good price, I thought, and so I did not make much on them, just $2 and $2.32 for profits of 12% and 16%. But overall, I can now call the deal complete, and at a profit of $69.08, which turns out to be about 33%, can feel really good about moving those two cards. And so I'll be looking, for more opportunities in low grade raw Hall of Famers from the 50s and 60s, because I've had good success with it. And now getting into some of the even bigger successes for the weekend. The first is this 1964 Carl Yastrzemski PSA 7. If anything, I'd say looking a little bit even better than a 7. Really good centering on this one. Crisp corners. Everything looks pretty darn good about it. And I would say I picked it up for a slight premium given the quality. And I would say I sold it for a slight premium given the quality. This one I picked up from a user on Net54, but it wasn't even sort of available for sale on Net54. It was the seller had made some other stuff available, and then as we got to talking, we exchanged phone numbers, and what started out as a small sale turned into a bigger sale. So I picked it up at a pretty good price because it was a bulk pickup. Then I listed it on eBay and sold it at a little bit over comps, I think because of the quality of the card, and ultimately made profit of only $12 on this one. Only 12, but that's a 10% profit, and most importantly, that's a 10% profit in less than a month. We're talking turning that around and selling it within just over 3 weeks. And so if you can turn over all your inventory at a 10% profit every 3 weeks, you're going to make a lot of money really fast. So I was happy with this sale, and I sold it, again at about 15% over comps on eBay. So I can't expect to get too much better than that. And so I knew that I didn't have a huge margin in this card, but I bet correctly that I could sell it at over comps, and ended up making a profit on this one. Next one, the same seller in the same deal, the 1964 Topps. So we've got a little bit of a theme here. We got some 1964s. They must be moving well. So if you're sitting on some 1964s, people are buying them. But this raw 1964 Topps Phil Niekro rookie, picked this up for $71 and sold it for an even 100 plus another 5 shipping. This one, so same deal, got it off of Net54 and posted it on Net54. Again, this one was not available publicly on Net54. This was kind of made privately after me and the old seller got to talking. So I felt a little bit better about posting it on Net54 in short order, even though I had purchased it from a user on Net54. And similar to the last one, I bet right that this was going to command a healthy figure given the quality of the card. I considered and so you can see here, total profit of $28 at nearly 40%. So that's a pretty healthy profit on this one, and again, just about a 3-week turnaround. And I had considered sending this one in for grading. If it had come back a 7, the comps on it are around 160, I believe. If it had come back a 7.5 or even an 8, I don't think it would have gotten an 8 because the bottom left corner is just a little bit soft. I'd be very surprised if that could have gotten an 8. I think more likely it would have come back a 7. But ultimately, I decided to post it and see if I could get a quick profit on it rather than taking the time and the expense and the risk of sending it off to SGC. And I was able to make a quick profit off of it. So I felt good about that. And that takes us to the crowning achievement of the weekend, really the crowning achievement of the month. And that is, and I've already made a kind of a post about this a couple weeks ago when I made the purchase, but I've already sold the 1967 SGC6 Mickey Mantle. So I picked this up on February 7th, so about 2.5 weeks ago, and I have sold it at a very nice profit. Picked it up for $370 on net 54, sold it on blowout for $470 plus $15 shipping. The buyer did want to pay by goods and services, so had to pay 3% fee to PayPal, but otherwise no fees on this transaction. No fees on the purchase through Net54, no other than the PayPal fees, no fees on the sale on blowout, for a less than 3-week turnaround of an $82 profit at just under 22%. So I now have right around $450 to play with as I make my way towards purchasing a 1965 Topps Mantle in PSA 6 or SGC 6. Those go for about $900 or $800 depending on which one you want. But I am thrilled to have owned this briefly. I think it's a really good looking 6. I was Johnny on the spot to make the purchase, and then found a buyer who was willing to pay good money for it, but a fair price for it. The comps had actually, so judging by VCP average, the comps had actually gone up about $20 in the time since I made the purchase, and I sold it for at $485. So with the shipping, $485 delivered was the price. That was $20 to $25 under comps. So my buyer got it at a pretty good price. I had gotten it at a very good price, and I think everybody wins. So just a couple of sort of principles that come into play here for the weekend. One, none of those 7 cards were bought and sold on eBay. In fact, 4 out of the 7 were neither bought nor sold on eBay. 2 were bought on eBay and sold privately, and 1 was bought privately and sold on eBay. But none of the 7 were bought and sold on eBay or even on MySlabs, which they've got a better fee structure for the seller, but it's still like 7-8% that the seller is paying. So kind of an important thing to remember if you're looking to get into flipping is that it's very, very difficult to make a profit when you're going to buy and sell using transactions that have significant fees. And so all of these transactions were done in a way to help minimize the fees. I guess the 2 1964 Topps Commons were bought on eBay, so you got healthy fees there, and then sold on MySlabs, which is there's still a decent amount of fees, but not as bad as eBay. So that's one of the principles. And then the other principle at play here is just to get your cards out there on different platforms. I sold just this weekend. I sold cards on MySlabs, eBay, Net54, and Blowout. And so you got to have your cards out there. You got to get eyeballs on them, and if you do, and you price them correctly based on the different fees that you're going to be paying, you can make money flipping vintage. And this is a good weekend to demonstrate that. On the weekend, $133.90 in profits. I do believe that's maybe the best weekend I've had, or the best calendar week that I've had ever in flipping cardboard. I know that the mantle, the $82 in profits on the mantle, was the best single transaction that I've had. And so to do that with a really quick turnaround and on a card that I am looking to use to make my way up to a bigger card, I was real happy. So I'd be interested. I'm going to let some of the buyers know that their new cards are featured on this episode. I'd be interested if any of them have any comments to add or any input to provide as the other transactors in this purchase. Maybe I'll let some of the sellers that I acquired the cards from know about it as well, and just see if any of them pop on here and leave their thoughts or input in the comments. All right, well, that's all I've got for this weekend. If you're interested in any cards that I've got, or interested in selling me any cards that you've got, please email me at chysoxcardboard@gmail.com or post in the comments. I hope to hear from you. All right, so I recorded most of this episode on Sunday, February 23rd, and it is Monday, February 24th, hence the outfit change. But overnight, I got a couple offers on some new cards, and during the day today, I accepted those offers and made a couple more sales. So if we count that for the weekend, first of all, something's in the air because lots of sales going on. But if we count that for the weekend, I made another $6 on this Topps Tiffany 1990 Larry Walker, and another nearly $10 on this 1973 Johnny Bench. One of them sold on eBay, one of them sold on Net54, and that brings my total profit on the weekend, if you're counting counting them both as weekend sales, even though the actual money was transacted on Monday, to a total of just pennies under $150. So definitely still the new kind of best short period that I've had, even if you call it a 3-day weekend, best three-day window I've ever had on making sales. And there were a few things that I was thinking about overnight. One was that I think of the 7 different people I sold to during this period, I think 3 of them were repeat customers. So I don't know if that's just a coincidence, or if I'm starting to get a solid reputation or a little bit of recognition as someone who can be trusted. Hopefully I am. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. But I was, at a minimum, I'm happy to see that people are willing to buy from me again, that they've had a good enough experience to purchase from me again. So happy about that. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was that I sold every single card that I sold this weekend. If an offer was made at less than my listed price, we got to a deal. Now, do I sometimes get offers that are just such lowball offers that we can't get to a deal? Yeah, absolutely. I got 2 or 3 such offers on the mantle before I sold the mantle. So I listed it, I think, a week ago Monday, and I got at least 2, maybe 3 offers that were like in the $300 range, which is not, around 60% of comps. So obviously people looking to also purchase it and flip it, which is fine. I mean, that you have to acquire these cards somehow, but that wasn't the way that I was going to sell the card. I was willing to wait until someone was able to pay retail to put it in their personal collection. But in every single sale that I made this weekend, where somebody made a reasonable a reasonable offer below what I had it listed at, we were able to come to a deal, typically by meeting right around in the middle. So that also tells me that I'm pricing my cards pretty fairly, that the listed price is getting interest, and even with listing them at that price, if I'm able to come down a little bit, typically I'm able to get a deal. The other thing I was thinking about was I had recorded this yesterday, and in the end I concluded and added up the numbers and said, I made $133 on the weekend, and now we're up to just under $150. And I was starting to feel kind of silly about that, because even though that's maybe the best weekend I've ever had selling cards, it's not a lot of money. I mean, sometimes I get on these videos in a shirt and a tie, not because I've got some shtick with being in a shirt and a tie, but because I work in a professional environment, and this is what I wear to work. And sometimes I record these episodes before work or during a lunch break or after work, like right now. It's the evening time, and I'm recording this after work before getting in my car to head home. And I make a good salary. Sometimes it doesn't stretch as far as I would like it to, and sometimes it doesn't seem like quite as good a salary as I should get, but that's how everybody feels, right, about their salary. I make a good salary. I don't need this money, and it's not a ton of money to me, or in the grand scheme of things, or anything like that. So I was actually starting to feel, after I recorded yesterday, I was starting to feel kind of embarrassed about the whole thing, and I almost considered not even posting this. But that made me think, why am I proud? Maybe I was a little embarrassed, but I was also proud of the sales that I made over the weekend. I was proud of putting together the best weekend of sales that I've ever had. I was proud of taking the next step to that mantle, the 65 mantle. So I got to thinking, why am I proud of this? And I think there's kind of two reasons. One is that I work in a professional environment, but I'm not a salesman. I'm not a business person. This is not something that necessarily comes naturally to me. So buying and selling a product, that's a new skill. That's something that I've never done really in my whole life. Even as a kid, when I worked, and I worked starting at 13, 14 years old, it was always labor. I was always doing labor, mostly mowing lawns, but also in general contracting, carrying drywall. And now I sell my time and my expertise. I don't sell a product. And so this idea of buying and selling and doing it at a profit and building relationships that yield good results for everybody involved, that's a new skill that I've never really leveraged. It's one that I'm learning, and I guess I'm kind of proud to see the results of that, even if the results are measured in dollars and cents that are not big numbers. The other reason I think is that, unlike the salary that I earn that puts eggs in the fridge and gas in the car and clothes on the kids' back and those types of things, the money I earn here goes into other cards. And so, like, I was looking at a 1963 Nellie Fox in PSA 8 the other day, and I didn't end up getting it. But a solid 8.5 is about would cost around $150. And so this weekend I made enough in profit to purchase a card in the Fox run that I don't have in a really nice grade, and a card that I think looks really nice. I really like the 1963s. I haven't had many of them, but I've sold a few recently, and I really like the set, and so I'm hoping to get the Nellie Fox soon. And when I do, the profit that I make on this doesn't translate one for one into a Nellie Fox card, but let's say that it did. The profit that I'm making here, in one way or another, goes to supplement my personal collection. And so, 50 years from now, I'm going to turn 40 this year. 50 years from now, maybe I'll still be kicking, and maybe I'll be showing my kids and grandkids and even great grandkids the card that I got in 2025 of Nellie Fox, who the card is now 120 years old or whatever. It's the T206s of that generation, and so these are this is money that I'm earning through a hobby and purchasing things that I hope I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. Maybe not. Maybe circumstances will require me to sell them. But that's not the idea. The idea is to hold on to these and collect them for life, and then maybe pass them on. And so, what the profit represents is really more rewarding, more fulfilling, I suppose, than the eggs in the fridge or the gas in the car or even the clothes. I mean, I guess it is nice to put clothes on my kids' back, but they ruin them pretty quickly, and then I got to get new clothes. I mean, there's no long-term value to them. So the profit that I'm making here is rewarding in a long-term sense. And so even though $150 is just $150, it's not a ton of money, and I'm not getting rich quickly on this, I am proud of the sales that I made this weekend, and I'm happy to have shared the experience with you. So with that, I'm closing this episode out. Even if I make any sales tonight, I'm not going to add anything to this episode. And hope to hear from you. With that, collect what you love and flip what you like.